Hello, I'm Colette Robbins, and this is Sophie Kahn, and we are the hosts of File Exchange. We are we're both hybrid digital analog sculptors, and during the pandemic, Sophie and I both noticed that there was a void in the discourse about artists using 3D software. So we created this channel, File Exchange, and File Exchange is a casual, long-form interview series. Each episode features a different artist, curator, or writer who focuses on 3D software. It's a platform to connect and share ideas, tools, and tips revolving around these 21st century tools. And you get to be a fly on the wall for these hour-long conversations where we deeply dive into the connections and contradictions using art and technology. So,
yeah, welcome. All right, so Colette, you're going to do. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I will skip this part out. I will do it. Yeah. So okay. All right, 3 seconds.
Sure.
We're very excited to have Snow Yunxue Fu joining us today. Snow has a very lengthy and impressive bio that we're going to put in the comments. To briefly introduce her, she's based in New York. She's a new media artist, curator, and assistant professor at NYU Tisch School of the Arts. Snow's practice merges historical, post-photographic, philosophical, and painterly explorations into the universal aesthetic and definitive nature of the techno-sublime, which is a great artist statement, by the way. I really like that. She teaches at Tisch. She has participated in residencies from LMCC at Governor's Island, Hatch at Chicago Artists Coalition. She has presented at SIGGRAPH. Her works are in numerous collections, and with her background in painting, she's the youngest artist collected by the National Art Museum in China. So what I particularly enjoy about her work is the painterly sensibility that she brings to her digital and immersive installations. And I think there's a real understanding of art history and spatiality and the sublime that runs through these spaces. So we're really excited to have you on our channel today, Snow. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sophie and Colette, for inviting me to be here. And it's a lovely day today here in New York, and lovely to have a conversation with you both and share a bit about my works.
yes, welcome. Thank you.
So yeah, you mentioned you have a solo show that's on right now. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you
Yes.
tell us some of those, some of the details?
Yeah, sure. I think I can go ahead and share my screen just so that we can have some visual while I talk about that. And so everybody can see it okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the current show that is on view everywhere on the internet is called Coverness. And it is a virtual solo exhibition that I am setting it up, or I have set it up with the platform called VArt. And they're a really interesting tech-based art platform that kind of provide really great kind of infrastructure as far as curating to sort of realizing shows like this, or project that's in a virtual sense, or with AR, VR assembled, dealing with the idea of the Metaverse. And they're a fairly young company, actually only hitting their first official year, though I think the team has been around for 2. But they're also very international, and it's mainly based in London and also Ukraine. And so it's just been really great journey to be working with them. They've hosted sort of the shows kind of like mine, right, before. And so in a lot of ways, this is sort of one of the kind of first sort of complete virtual solo show that I have. In a recent sort of couple years, I've had actually one solo show back in China earlier this year at the Dunde Art Museum, and then another solo show right before the hit of pandemic at New York in Manhattan, Chinatown. And both of the show end up actually having a virtual component just because
so people could see it.
Totally. But this one from the get-go was it's a virtual show, so I can kind of go into the show actually with our kind of meeting today too, because one of the access is through the website, while the other one is actually
my first question, whether headset or not. Right, so it can be a browser or in a headset.
Right, yeah. And then the other access is through their app, which can be downloaded anywhere internet that can go to the Apple App Store. So it's a free app, and once it is downloaded, there's a direct link. Then we'll kind of bring the viewer to my show. So it's AR symbol. People can kind of walk around in it.
There's
also a button that
it's really hard to have it run on mobile, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have questions about that as
well.
well.
I have a question, Snow, about the difference between VArt and hubs, Mozilla hubs. It's just a different, like, is it different file sizes that you can use in it? Like, what are the differences between, do you know?
Yeah, sure. VArt is, everything is very in-house. So the process that I've been working with them, it's about sort of bringing in my existing project, both in terms of screen-based work. There's about 12 of them showing here. You can kind of see some of the little screen here, but also two of the artwork that actually kind of getting realized in a space. So they have their own, I think it's still fundamentally a Unity structure, but it is set up specifically for their app and for their website. So it is somewhat similar to maybe a social VR site, except that I think it's also more substantial in the sense that we can carry a lot more polygon, and there's like you can see fire like effects kind of in the back, and
particles,
particles, which is very hard to do in hubs, otherwise. Yeah, totally. And then one last thing is that I guess also just this is not necessarily the project right now is not necessarily connected to the VR site. So it's either web-based or it's app-based, although we're actually sort of having a conversation of putting this onto another social VR site that is called Sensar, which is sort of like Second Life 2.0. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, fun. Yeah, and if you want to do a little tour of the show, if you're
I'd love to hear more about the imagery and concepts that you're delving into here. And I love the name.
Thank you. Yeah. So maybe just let me show a few more slides before I actually hop onto the website page. This is how the view looks like on the app. So more so of the vertical framework, and like I said, it's AR symbol, so you can walk, right, for example, in your living room, and then you will move around in a space, or you hold on to this giant blue button at the bottom of the screen, and then you can walk, navigate that way. And to Colette's question, the name of the show and also the concept, so covering us is a play on word with the other word cavernous, right, which indicates this kind of idea of a deep and mysterious dark space. And I thought that was such a good word to describe the liminal space that digital space kind of provides, especially in relationship to this show. So this is the one of the side, which is modeled after my one of my recent work called the Night Flame. The Night Flame piece is actually a VR piece, but we basically kind of translated it into this setup. And then the other side, right? So two sides, as you may see in the background image of mine here. So the other side of the island, right? Because it's basically kind of a piece of land that is immersed amongst a large, endless body of water, is modeled after another piece of mine called Submerge. And then sort of together they house, 12 art pieces. And so let me go to this next page. So, when one kind of launched launched the project, the viewer actually gets placed in the middle where there's a bridge. And so if you look on your right hand side, right, it's the Night Flame side, and then the other one is the Submerged one. And kind of really just quickly, the Night Flame side, the piece came out of ongoing fire series that I've been working with for the past 2 to 3 years, and it actually started with a pretty close encounter I had on the edge of a forest fire in Canada. A few years ago, and I was safe, but it was, and also I don't necessarily live in one of those areas, but even just that kind of close encounter, just really
you want to be.
No, you don't want to be. Yeah.
That's like plenty. No, I mean, I grew up in Australia with, terror of bushfire kind of.
Yeah, totally.
And, there were like PSAs that you would see in school about what you should do if your car gets stuck in a fire, and we'd always carry blankets and big jugs of water.
Wow.
Wherever we drove in case. And the fires recently, even in Australia, it's been like apocalyptic. And I think obviously like the air quality all over the country being affected. So I feel this is very much it's kind of fear. It's a like climate collapse, the focus of climate collapse anxiety that people are experiencing. So yeah,
totally. That's exactly that. And thank you, Sophie, for sharing that, experience. Because, I'm not one who live amongst those kind of fear, but just sort of as somebody who had an encounter was enough to resonate with me. And
it's terrifying.
It is really, really terrifying. And reflecting also to the way that I think forest fire, like even the Australian one, we saw with the reoccurring North American one recent years, the way that we kind of encounter those news are oftentimes with photographs and images kind of on the web, right? And it's also super easy to just kind of like move on to another piece of news, right? And so I really wanted to create a space in my work to kind of allowed this confrontation, right? And I think, as Sophie also mentioned, it is really kind of a global sort of, unfortunate kind of climate, climate like difference, sort of, especially we can see in the recent kind of decades or so, and so. A lot of my other work sort of on the side of the Night Flame also sort of looking at the environment, right? Looking at sort of different factors. For example, the karst piece, which I think Sophie knows the piece pretty well, probably by now, looked at, the cave structures in southwest part of China where I'm originally from, which then kind of gets to be, really changed because of a direct sort of usage of those spaces being housing of hardwares of the Chinese citizens, and then also another junction of that piece comes from my experience visiting the glacier site a few years ago too, and even just being there, it was sort of how visible it was kind of melting in front of me. Or it's the other trench piece called Trench, another VR piece that sort of portraying, right, making a digital painting of the ocean, but unfortunately not only in the beautiful coral reefs and the animals, but you get bombarded with trash. So I'm using the Night Flame piece in essence to really frame those rest of the work, and a little bit, I guess, also about the submerged side, and then I'll take you in, right? Give you a little tour. Is that so that was very much sort of maybe looking into sort of like our influences or our sort of effects onto the world around us, but then the submerged side is more about kind of looking out for me, because it is this kind of landscape that's made up by body parts, and also carries textures of starry night or a galaxy, if you will, and associating with the sublime, kind of placing one, right, self in a larger world, right? Not only in terms of our Earth, but also the galaxy. The sort of scale that we have is more like we're like a little grain of sand, right, on this giant seashore. So all of the 6 works in there also kind of really reflect on the idea of body. I think body materially sort of connecting to nature, right? That we all kind of share this natural element, but also this idea of sort of one's place, right? One's scale, right? Both in terms of history, but also in terms of size. So that is.
I mean, those are really, really vast themes, and I think it's really amazing as an artist that you're going in and tackling such dense themes, but still bringing that painterly quality. I keep thinking about Fred Tomaselli. I don't know if you know that artist who shows at James Cohan Gallery, and also Chris O'Feely somehow is coming to mind too. Just the way you are using contrast and saturated and desaturated colors in contrast with really dark grounds, making me think of that layering.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think the maybe a conversation to kind of have about 3D is and also when I teach here at NYU, I kind of frame it as this post-photographic medium, and oftentimes it is associating kind of with representing something that we're familiar with. But I think maybe because of my kind of painterly background, I'm always really a lot more interested in the abstraction. So therefore it's not always that the kind of hyper realistic is what I kind of go for, right? But I think it is this sort of high contrast of color, right? For example, and also kind of this idea of making forms that sort of represents certain abstract idea, but also kind of open to other things. I think is kind of aesthetically how I often approach my work. They're never really kind of like super photographic, but I think you can see the sort of references, kind of like a painting, right? Painted images does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So here is the artworks, the exhibitions. I guess you can call it either one, right? Really, site on VArt, and I can share the link with you all later on too. But this is actually, I really like the way that this page is set up, because it also can kind of help the viewer to navigate a lot of the information about the show. Well, I guess that is goes back to the same page. And so here's a kind of a little bit about the show concept, which I talked about, a little bit about me, but also the individual artwork that gets to be displayed.
way to do it. Yes.
I really like the setup. Yeah.
I've done a really nice job. Yeah.
Totally,
Is
totally.
this just in terms of like, did you get invited to do this exhibition and then they put you on this platform? Because this is like a lot of, I love how it's almost like a gallery page.
Yeah. Yes. I guess to your question. Yeah, I was invited to work with them. And I mean, all of the artwork, even the one that we put in their in-house software, comes from me. But they, in terms of like kind of support, they put everything else together.
Great, because that is a huge undertaking.
That is
I mean, the
certainly,
files themselves are a big undertaking as an artist to like work with 3D and then to put them into a workable interactive space like that is a whole nother set of tools.
Totally. Which, this was one of the things I was doing this summer, that we have, so many meetings. And so each step I was very involved. That was the thing too. I really love just kind of like knowing the process, and while feeling super supported this whole way. Here is the web version. Might take a little to load because we also have Zoom on, I think.
That's how it always goes.
Yeah. Oh, it's looking promising. Okay, so let's go into it. So I'm just using my mouse, left and right, and also WASD to move forward, move back. So like I was describing, we start with this bridge and on one side is submerge, and actually there's a lot of animation going on even with the body parts itself. So I was pretty impressed that that was getting pulled through. And this side is the night flame side, and also particle simulation. It's a lot on the system. So I can kind of move forward a bit with it. Actually, also let me maybe just go full screen.
Ooh.
Yeah, here we go.
Nice.
Yeah, the better view. And so we can go into this space, and of course it is a digital space, so therefore nobody is going to be harmed by fire, right? Usually we'll run the other way, but this time we're safe. And also each of the other work that's displayed on the screen, like I just did, if we are kind of close enough and we are still as the audience, you then activate the spring to play that work.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward now to seeing it on Oculus.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully we'll get that put together. So you can go to the different piece, and the sound hopefully is coming through too.
That's so cool to have that sound component.
Thank you. So very similar to, I think somebody goes into a gallery space and look at the video artwork. In a way, and you can get really close to the piece, and then you can kind of continue move through this space. One can actually also climb up to the hill if they so choose to. And again, they wouldn't be hurt. Hope I'm not making everybody nauseous with my
No. Amazing. It's there's also a level of kind of psychedelic kind of patterning, and I love that. Especially how did you make the sky that kind of like stippled or like starry night kind of, is that like texture you created and then put onto a shape? Okay.
Yeah, and it's also slightly moving. All kind of create this little dizziness. So it is an object that then I mapped the starry night like texture on.
Like an animated texture.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, it's really, I think that idea of like kind of these almost psychedelic, transcendent, kind of layered environments, it really helps to talk about such a big issue where we really are this grain of sand, or like thinking about Carl Sagan saying, the pale blue dot, this idea that like, just if you zoomed out and looked at where we're at, and it's both like a meditation on just our existence, but also a contemplation and an observance of the kind of just the horrors of climate change. I mean, it's again a hard thing to swallow all at once, but I think you're doing a good job like layering all of these things. So it's, I think having a piece of art is a good place to experience that kind of fire, because you won't be hurt, but you can still observe and acknowledge it.
That's a really interesting thought. Like, I think I remember reading some things about VR, and I could be wrong, but that people were using it for like exposure therapy for phobias, like if you're an arachnophobe, you could be in VR and you can have, a giant tarantula crawling towards you, and a part of you knows it's a simulation, but it lets you experience that heightened emotion, but in an environment where you know that you can take it off. You know that it isn't actually like quote unquote real.
Totally.
So I guess it's interesting to think about being within a kind of technological simulation that is letting you experience some of that emotion, but at a distance.
Totally.
The level of mediation that's involved, where you can always exit out.
Yeah, I think it also kind of speaks to this idea of the power of the image, that that it is this kind of perceptual tool almost, right? It kind of puts us into a certain concept in a space, and we can really feel the emotion, like and I think like when I was creating this piece, I was sort of drawing back some of the memories I had. It was very like smoky, the sort of kind of like warmth, and like I was on the edge, so it was but kind of imagining like the temperature and all of that. So and then kind of just kind of putting, I think, people in that situation. Otherwise it feels very much kind of just behind the screen. A lot of time I think there is that kind of gap when we just see an image kind of flat on the screen. We feel like it's like it's not really connected to us. But if we sort of find ourselves right, but if we kind of find ourselves in that, it's a bit more of a like a resonation, I guess.
What about, can you talk us through the different paintings that you have, or video paintings or animation paintings that you have on the screens? Because that one, it's like a cave.
Yeah, sure. So this one was the one that kind of mentioned earlier. Also, when I talk, is the background sound kind of competing with my voice?
A little bit in this situation.
Okay, so let me kind of I can pull out enough to just be looking at it. Yeah. So that was the cars piece that has to do with the cave, and then so each one of them, it's actually like a full-length video. So like one can stand here to watch the whole thing if they may choose to. Now I just need to activate it. Sometimes I think I might have to go like somewhere else and then come back, right?
To trigger the little hubs will do that too, getting videos to play in hubs.
Yeah. And then maybe I'll just kind of move this way too. So this one was the trench piece that is another actually VR piece. Originally, when we kind of planning this, I was kind of excited about this idea of like dimensions embedded underneath dimensions, so like they can also maybe enter another space with this portal. But I think this technical side, it gets like super giant. So that's why we sort of arrived at like the other piece is probably kind of just going to be screen based, which is
Right.
kind of funny because it is, you know, digital, like we're in a digital show and then we're still looking at a screen.
It's a lot of
I
layers.
really like that. I think
Yeah.
that's a really fun play off of like exhibition design for a artist using digital tools. In the past, it was always a screen in a space, but now you're taking it to this other level and still playing with that rectangle. I think that's really interesting to play with that medium.
I like that. Thank you. Yeah. Kind of, you know, I guess, you know, most of us are still experiencing at least this piece through the screen. So there's that kind of echoing.
Ooh, that's a beautiful vignette right there with the colors of, the, you know, the psychedelic colors. Is that supposed to kind of represent the trash?
Yeah, it's sort of the I guess the runes from the fire. And you know, I feel like part of the sublime, right, is to like simultaneously recognizing the beauty, but also the devastation, right? So I didn't kind of wanted to hide too much away from either end of things. This is so this is the second part of trench. Ooh. So also kind of put some signages in here. You saw here is this.
Yeah, I wear a mask sign. Yeah,
wear a mask sign earlier. It was kind of unplanned in a way. We're sort of like trying to find models of like towns, and then we saw that because, you know, this piece is very much, you know, made throughout the pandemic. So it was just kind of interesting to reflect that time too. But this is a trench piece that I was talking about in terms of a lot of ocean trash instead of just the beautiful corals.
Yes. And just in terms of just kind of talking about which 3D tools you use, I'm very curious, like, you know, how you generate. I don't do a lot of stuff with effects, like, so it's definitely an area I'm not specialized in. But how do you generate your imagery? Like, you know, what's your workflow like?
Yeah, for sure. So, oftentimes Maya is where I start. Maya is, you know, where the models gets to be made, gets to be manipulated, textures applied, and Maya is so sort of comprehensive to kind of connect with all of the other 3D software. So, you know, Substance Painter and all that. And some of the screen-based work, I mean, they're all screen-based in a sense, but those are actually translation of VR work, right, here. But some of the other side of the work that I'll bring you all to see actually gets simulated in Maya too. But the VR works on this side are mostly also then transported into game engine like Unity, like Unreal Engine. This one is an Unreal Engine piece, and that's where the VR gets to be set up, and you know, player can kind of go in, and so there is a kind of this idea of kind of stage set making, if you will, right? I set up the space. I bring in the object. This particular piece, actually, all of the object in here with another software called Real Flow that simulates fluid simulation. But instead of kind of using it as just like a 3D moving image of fluid, we use it to kind of like making sculptures. So all of the trash-like objects that you are seeing right now are like other objects that we find online, like, you know, bottles or like, you know, chairs, but then we sort of bring it into Real Flow to then simulate the water-like shape around it. It's kind of like corrosion or kind of like things building up on it after a while in the ocean, and then we import that into the scene, and putting then the very sort of psychedelic. This is really psychedelic, kind of glitch textures onto them. And then here you see also like the screen gets glitched. So that is what happens when the viewer in a VR headset, and let me pull it out a little bit. And if they were to kind of go close to a certain pile of trash, just kind of like how we trigger the screen to play, it triggers a 360 screen filter on your VR headset. So you kind of get this like glitch just all over the place when you play the VR. So it's not really the object being animated, but it's basically a big filter.
Like your whole field of vision. Oh,
exactly. Yeah. So that's that piece. And Karst is sort of similar process too, in terms of setting up the cave, or the glacier, or the heart chamber, and then kind of enabling people to go into that space through the VR.
Yeah.
It's so cool to have a VR within a VR.
Yes.
It's like, it is really talking about the metaverse in that sense. And the trash pile too. I'm thinking about Ready Player One, and it's just about this, like, having your VR headset on and like kind of going into this other world. But it's kind of inside out though, because it's like the stuff left behind is the kind of fodder for the metaverse, as opposed to the metaverse being just a simulation. So that's interesting too.
I like that. Wow, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, layer after layers, right? We're just amongst it. Like some point we don't even know where the border is, but that's kind of the idea.
Yeah. This is
beautiful.
I love that the way you've done this, where it has like a contour line on it and the kind of illuminated little stippled paint marks, like almost like a galaxy. But then there's these shapes, they feel like they're alive and pulsing. I just want to be wrapped in that material.
Yeah,
I'd like there to be an outfit that has that.
I should go into virtual fashion.
That's right. I would love to be one of your virtual fashion models, just so I can wrap myself in your beautiful textiles. Because they have a textile design as well. There's an aspect to that I saw in some of the other videos too. Like it looked like a crochet pattern, or different. I see some textile design in here.
Yeah.
Inspiration. Oh, look at the doorways in there. Or are those more pieces? Those are more screens.
Yeah, those are more screens. So I'll bring you to some of them as well. And actually, talking about virtual fashion or AR, there is actually a way to put oneself in this place through a Instagram background AR filter. So I'll talk about that next after this little tour. So let me go to one of the screen here.
That's stunning.
Thank you. And if I can activate, there's a little bit of a sweet spot, like you kind of have to
right
the front of it.
Very much more, I feel like I can't think of a better word, but high concept than Mozilla Hubs. Like you can really do a lot more in this.
Yeah. I think it's like a robust version of that. So sort of similar, the piece we're watching is from the Conjoin series. So similar to kind of Submerge, which is the environment. A lot of body shape also gets to be formed or displayed throughout. This is actually a 3D moving image piece, so it's completely screen-based. And when I was showing this piece in other settings, installations, they're usually kind of a full room projection. So the body can kind of be in a relative scale to the human viewer's body. So that is that. And let me maybe just go.
Yeah, that's the most figurative I've seen thus far. And I really liked that in relationship with all these abstract pulsing kind of creatures. They almost feel like I'm gonna.
Totally. Yeah. No, that's good. I think like back to this kind of idea of figurative too, because whether in painting or photography, and Sophie, hey, we're sort of going that direction too. It's this sort of idea of like when something is figurative, we like the general notion is to become representational. Right, like either the portrait of a photo or like a figurative painting. So I kind of coming from that, I wanted so much to sort of like go into the abstraction. Like the figurative to me is abstraction, right? And so like even that, like I think was one of the reason why I wanted to break down the body parts. So you see like, the legs there and because, essentially they can be a symbol. But I think this idea of the figurative is also interesting to me as a way of like, like we, some like there's so many sort of abstractive thoughts, right? Even in a mathematical sense, like when we say the word like 10 million, like we kind of have an idea, but we really don't have an idea, right? So I think it's kind of this like similar parallel to like when we reckon, oh, that's a figure, but like a figure is composed of so many things, like microscopic level and like each layers, and so I really kind of wanted to sort of make it more fluid in a way, that I wanted to kind of break down. And, in a sense, like once we get to the microscopic level, it's really relating to like the macroscopic level too, the way that cells work, or even atoms, if we want to, go all the way to atom, is kind of the way sort of parallel to some of the planets movement, and which kind of brings to this piece. This is from a piece from my Galaxy series, and this was a particle simulation piece where I utilized NASA's Galaxy images as the ready-made images, and it is placed very flat, right? It's placed flat in here. So the camera is placed just on the side, and with the NASA images of galaxies, of Milky Ways, I then simulate the particles. So all of the particles that you're seeing right now coming out, takes on the density, takes on the color information of those galaxy imagery. And because I also kind of replace them, right? So there's like multiple images sort of play out in this flat video that I'm denying you of watching. So it's also, so that's also kind of causing why, right, the particle come out in different ways, different shapes, although they sort of end in this kind of dome limit. So that, I thought was also kind of relating to, we again, like there's so many elements to, what we would call like the galaxy, right? But also the imagery, right, that we consume about the galaxy. I want to go far enough. It's not letting me getting out of it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, with technology, always have to have a little bit of patience. So and then
get used to it.
right, you get used to it. Just like, yeah, that's what to expect. So the piece on the right of it, that's actually already playing right now, speaks also about that, but it's kind of the other way around, the way that, even a NASA image is made, right? It's out of data collection. So many scientists get together and, they sort of calculate, and somehow, for example, the black hole image, we get that rectangular image, everybody is looking at, and then some say, hey, that's a black hole. And so for me, I wanted to kind of indicate a reversal of that procedures. So this one, the image you can actually kind of see behind the grid, right, instead of just on the side. But this one is for the sun, and also from with NASA's ready-made image. So I'm taking their images as a ready-made object in a sense, but I'm kind of taking the information to make my own image, my own particle. And the particle also kind of represent the I think 300 million images that gets to be used for making the sun images in that video. So okay, now that sun now it just wants to stay with me. I'm like, oh, okay, you have to go really far with this one. I guess the reach of the sun is really far.
This also reminds me of like an interactive opera.
Oh, interesting.
Because of, and I mean, I'm also just thinking about how cool would it be to like collaborate with some sort of theatrical presentation in that sense, because I just really see, you even use the term stage design, because it's just it's encompassing everything, and that's what an opera talks about. It's just you get all of it. And there's something so grand about that, and epic.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's also, I think, like VR to me sometimes, or interactive art games, right? To me, sometimes really also resonate with like a theme park, like amusement park.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a ride. It's like a ride.
That's so true. That is so true. And there's also obviously, like within a VR space, you're going to have that connection to the point of view of a game.
Yeah.
Point of view gaming.
Yeah.
And there's this, where you are in control of discovering and walking through in a way that, obviously just a video piece on a wall in a gallery or even on a screen is not gonna have that same experience with it.
Yeah, totally. And I think the interaction sort of mimics more the way that we experience the world, right? In our life, we don't sort of just use our eye, just use our ear. I think the sort of all sensory activation, like we even sort of sometimes feel something because the size we have kind of physically, so I think like medium like this really sort of provides the opportunity to also kind of activate many of the other senses, and of course the technology will grow, and I think the potential there is tremendous in a sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, we like to try and keep these under an hour. So
okay.
I don't want to rush you too much, but I would love to hear just a little bit more of your background, like how you 3D, how you discovered these tools, and if you have a minute to kind of fill us in on that.
Yeah, you were talking about your background. You have a background as a painter?
Yeah. So yeah, a little bit about that. I was actually born in a artist family, in a generational artist family where my grandfather was a prominent painter in China. His work is quite a few of his work was collected by the Chinese National Art Museum. My grandmother was a illustrator for the city's newspaper, and she also made children's books. She was also a printmaker. And then my mother grew up in that environment, so she sort of is like jack of all trades in the sense that she's paintings, woodwork, printmaking, and sculpting, and I think also she put all of that into education. So my parents for me to kind of grow up in the environment where they actually run a children's art school in southwest part of China, and they so I'm really kind of young starting out, like that's kind of the immediacy that I had with my family, and there was a kind of a funny moment. I remember this that like I as a young person realizing, oh, not everybody does art. I'm so sort of grateful for that.
That's amazing.
It is just it's just a level of sort of immersiveness I think I have with that. But kind of jumping a bit forward, so I kind of grew up with their school, so I was definitely a student of theirs, just like many others. To the biggest point of their school, they had over 1,000 students, and it was also a school that's only runs over the weekend. So the student will have their heavy academic work throughout the week, but then their parents will take them to this art school, and their school is called Stars Children's Art School, by the way. They're also very different, I think, from some of the other so-called trade art school, which focus so much on getting assessed to kind of get sort of certification, meaning the way that I don't know, Chinese education system does things, even for art, but they didn't really care for that. And one other really distinct, I think, features of theirs is also not only this kind of idea of they're artists. And my father is a literature professor, and he's certainly put a lot of kind of literature narrative influences into the school and into the curriculum that they set up for the school. And another really unique thing beyond, right, my mother being this contemporary artist, and my father being from the literary background, is also the region where we were. Southwest part China is very rich with its let's just say native culture, right? The minority groups that is different from the Han, which takes over, I think, 90% of the population. But we have quite a few different kinds of minority group, and they're so rich in terms of their costume, their architecture, their language, their jewelry,
and arts, and
totally. And it's and because of sort of my grandfather's job was, he was working in a culture institute for the city, so there was a long period of time he was collecting, right? He was sort of going into the villages and collecting and archiving, right, before sort of development kind of comes in, and everything is very much Hanized. and so I all of that was just right around me, and I was so lucky, and then jumping, right, as I promised I would. Long story short, jumping to America when I started to start like really kind of telling myself like I want to be an artist, because there was once a while I was like, I wasn't sure if I'm gonna be an artist. Everybody else in the family is an artist, like it took
Bill and be an accountant.
I mean, yeah, right, yeah. I was like, I want to be a scientist. Anyway, but then it took me kind of half a way around the world to be like, okay, I think I want to be an artist. But the sort of interesting science, I think, was especially sort of coming back to me once I'm more involved in digital art. Even working with 3D, right? The 3D model is so sort of set up kind of relating to physics, right? Math. So it was a good detour, and
get into the work, right?
Yeah, certainly
into your practice. Yeah,
very much so. And so Sophie probably knows a bit about this period, right? Like I sort of started in SIC as a painter. I was kind of frustrated, sort of just like everywhere I want to go, I keep hearing sort of voices from professors or other artists like, oh, somebody else have done this before, like 500 other people have done this.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
You've been through painting and drawing, is that right? Like
yeah, I was in painting and drawing.
I do a film video new media at SAOC. Sorry, I didn't realize you came through painting.
My husband, husband went there and he graduated at SAIC, School of the Art Institute of Chicago. He graduated in 2002 in the painting department.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm not bad mouthing painting department. Just what I was listening to it. Yeah, I was hearing it.
And you would I was 2011 to 2013, and then you were the year after me, right, Snow? Yeah,
so grad school started for me 2012. Yeah, I actually really still, I still really loved my experience in the painting department, but I think it was more of a kind of idea of like, I think the medium itself, right? If you will, like, it's so sort of exhausted compared to maybe digital art. And now I will kind of say back to those voices, like, but I haven't tried to do it, like, I have to do it, like, I don't care if 500 other people have done this before. But that was
that's interesting feedback, because it's very art schooly to say that, because it's honestly, if you look in the galleries and you look at a number of artists, you can trace back it. I mean, there's that Instagram feed where it's like comparing, who wore it better or something, where it's like 2 or 3 versions of like, and what's interesting, it's very popular, this feed, and I think it's a really interesting archive, because there is always so much overlap. I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, there has been in every century of this, people are inspired by other people. That's what art is like, so there's no one way. There's just
I agree. And even digital art nowadays,
same thing.
Yeah, it's the same.
Have you crossed into NFTs as well?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I actually crossed into NFT 2018 was when I entered the space, and
that's early.
Yeah, fairly early. Maker's Place was I think I was maybe one of the first group of artists they contacted when they first set it up. So then, the sale didn't happen until like about 9 months ago, right? Like, but the work is being up there, like the NFT sales, but the work's been up there since 2018.
So is that your platform that you use, is Maker's Place?
It's one of the platform. I've been kind of working with some other platform since then too. Yeah.
We both work with Foundation, and then I'm also on Hick at Nuke.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, I just also started with First Dib. They just started their NFT NYU, and too many N's.
Show with Claudia.
It's not in the same show.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's the same platform that they're on too. Do I have time maybe to show really quick the filter that I promised?
Yes. Perfect.
Absolutely not enough to say that.
Maybe as a way to end, I think, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Great. So I'm actually just going to sort of like point to everyone where to access it, and then I'll kind of show you my example, but I will highly encourage everybody to try it on their own. So VArt also sort of set this up, right, in their Instagram page. So if you go on their Instagram page on your phone, here is how you go to their the filter. Oh, great. Sophie's checking it out. And so the filter opens up something like that. And if you put yourself in it, right, you press like try it, like, your face can be shown on the foreground. It's like a virtual background, means virtual background. So the background is AR symbol. So that means if you move around with your phone, it moves. Yeah.
That's
so
awesome. Oh, that's so much fun.
It's a lot of fun. Here's a little video of mine.
This is, I can't actually demo this on the camera unless.
Oh yeah.
Kind of. Not really, but yeah, it looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, that's so cool.
Thank you. And just kind of like, drawing a circle back in the sense that I'm putting my audiences back into the page or into the space. Yeah.
Yeah. They are the final piece of the puzzle there.
Yeah. A little bit.
That's so cool.
Excited to try it with a headset now. And
yeah. So, and your current piece at Washington Square Park, as you were saying, do you want to tell everybody about that as we wrap up?
Sure. Kind of as maybe just a upcoming page. And upcoming project. Sorry. And this is going to be a VR enabled piece. So Sensar, the platform that this project is using, it's like a little bit like a web VR, except that you don't actually do it through the web browser, but you have to download Sensar on your computer. So that's why I was saying it's a little bit more like a Second Life. But this is a project that the DSL collection, a French-based collection that focuses on Chinese contemporary artists, as well as in the digital Metaverse space, have invited me to do. And they wanted to show my work. They also wanted to for me to build this virtual version of exhibition place that could potentially also house my students' work. And with the way that I'm setting up curriculum right now in NYU, it's really sort of connecting to my practices, right, with sort of the background that I bring into when I taught at School of Art Institute for 5 years, and like even as a grad student study under Claudia Hart, right? And so sort of inspired by that curriculum, but then taking into NYU and making it sort of suitable for, first of all, the Department of Photo Imaging, but also kind of connecting more so to my practice in this post-photographic frame. And so it made a lot of sense to not only show my work, but also for my student work, kind of as an extension of all of that. And we choose to set up the virtual version of Washington Square Park because of a few different reasons. First of all, it's such a sort of an important place in New York City, right? Culturally, historically. It's also, really in the center of NYU. It's still City Park's property, but I think NYU think it's, right, like their own, or like the student faculty always are here. And then so we wanted to kind of use that as an exhibition place. And let me go. So, we sort of started with kind of building up the park on Sensar, and you will kind of see the resemblance of the arc, right? The sort of structure, and we're also building it in a snow scene. So the opening is going to be early November, where the show will officially open for everybody to visit, either on your VR headset or on Sensar itself. You all will have your own avatar, right? So very, very fun. So, you can then all of a sudden come to, New York in the winter scene at the Washington Square Park. So Sensar is the ones who sort of supports this project. And this launch will also kind of coordinate with quite a few other Metaverse project launch. So it will be interconnected. For example, there is another Meta space that's right now being built with the Pingshan Museum in China. I think there is another one from an artist village in France. It's quite a few different ones. Oops. So once it's released, actually, let me just go to our Instagram page, because let me this off, because everybody are welcome to sort of come to our page and follow us and see the process. The official link release will be, of course, November.
Okay.
But as kind of almost as an educational way to show this piece, we've all kind of been documenting the process, the progress. So this is some of the more recent. We start to install the students' artwork again, kind of as this giant screen situation in the park, and one side of the screen plays everybody's video on a loop, while the other side is still images, and we'll also have actually a sculptural component of everybody's work installed.
That's so great, and that is also, it's just to kind of like, I think, kind of conclude from today. It seems like your teaching practice and your art and all of those things are about the intersections between everything, and I mean, especially with such an again, the epic scale that you're working with, and the kind of intimate, and then the zoomed out micro and macro, and I think is really showing in this piece, and then also in your VR piece, that connectivity. I'm just really seeing that, and I think that's what I loved as a student, and also I teach as well, and it's the idea of working on a project together is so awesome, and I wish that happen more, and that's really inspiring me for my own curriculum in the future, because that's what I loved the most in undergrad. When I went to MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art, and I did a study abroad, and I got to work in a studio right below my professor, and that was like the coolest thing in the whole world, because then you felt like you were in this collaborative mode almost. But Snow, thank you so much for joining us on this episode.